I built an insurance company from the ground up to a little under $500 million in revenue in about 3.5 years and 25 million of EBITDA. And today that business sits at over $1 billion.
Well, hey, Mike, welcome to the show. How are you?
That's great, Ralphie. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited about diving into the whole C-suite and business transformation in healthcare. But before we dive into that topic in too much depth, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and kind of what got you to what you're doing now with Sunstone Management?
Sure. So 35 plus years in the healthcare and insurance space. I started my journey inside the big company. It was my alma mater, I'd like to say. It spawned me. I spent the better part of 15 years there, 13 and a half, which didn't even have a resume together. So it was the classic kind of corporate ladder thing. I started as a entry-level, right out of college underwriter and got some good advice to constantly do lots of different things. And by the time I finished my career there, I was running health plans, specifically running all of New England, running basically the New England franchise. But on that journey, there's a couple things I realized about myself that, number one, that having a bigger job inside the larger organization for me spiritually wasn't going to be having a better job. And then the second thing is I'm not a house cat. I want to eat what I kill. I want to be, a little more entrepreneurial. And so I started my second phase of my journey, went, an entrepreneurial route, got an equity stake in a small company, really small, smaller than accounts I had at Cigna, and we sold our business to United Healthcare, and basically I built United Healthcare's dental business from my chair at this company, and then did a series of what I would call entrepreneurial, which is build, fix, startup, turnaround inside larger organizations. That wasn't a lot of fun. Be very wary of the organization, say the desired sea change, because most of them, it's the ultimate definition of madness. They want different results, but not doing anything different to get there. And then the back half of my career was more small to mid-sized, truly entrepreneurial business, C-suite. And I had some of my best success there in terms of notable achievements. I built an insurance company from the ground up to a little under $500 million in revenue in about 3.5 years and 25 million of EBITDA. And today that business sits at over $1 billion. I took 3 different companies with some related ownership in the payer-provider service space, different levels of distress, put the 3 together, brought in a new management team, navigated through COVID, refinanced debt, grew the EBITDA 40% in the first year and the revenue 20%. So, and then prior to that, I executed a turnaround on a deeply troubled insurance company. The overarching theme is I'm not Warren Buffett, the stock picker. So if you ever hear me touting this great thing, you should short the stock because the chances are pretty good I mucked it up, right? As I was looking the other day, there's like 4 or 5 things that I've gone into that literally were in deep kimchi within the first 90 to 120 days. And again, I'm not talking about, hey, the washroom isn't what you promised me. I'm talking like balance sheet problems, chains over the door, that sort of thing. Anyway, as I wrapped up my last C-suite assignment and was contemplating what I was going to do next, and I'd had a period where I had my own advisory business. I had friends and colleagues said, you're really good at building and fixing things. That's what you love to do, so instead of trying to ply our wares in a single place, let's make our mission to help as many companies as we can as possible. And that's how we reformatted and reformulated Sunstone, merged with another outfit. Our legacy goes back about 20 to 25 years. And a Sunstone is, when I originally had my advisory business, I said to my family, name Daddy's company, and my daughter came up with Sunstone. And it's I'm a history major, and so still trying to find ways to make the education worthwhile, yeah. Sprinkle in obscure historical references every chance I get. And she said that a Sunstone was a Viking navigation device used by the Norsemen long before there were compasses in 100, 200 or prior, to the Common Era, and that's how they were able to navigate. They could find the sun in the sky when it wasn't readily apparent. And I thought, well, that's cool. That's what we are. We're going to help our clients find their sun in the sky. So Reformatted, relaunched Sunstone. Our mission is simple. We're going to help companies, all companies in the healthcare and insurance space, irrespective of size, dramatically improve their enterprise value. And that could be growth strategies for product, sales execution, client management, marketing, to refining profit streams, figuring out where the margins are, better execution of operations, lowering costs. Could be strategy work and plotting and mapping and making sure you're on the right path, or it's fractional leadership where, we're another set of arms and hands. So that's the story of Sunstone. That's how we got there. And I have 9 or 10 great partners, are all complementary in the skill sets. Obviously, I've been in the C-suite. I'm been heavy, certainly M&A, growth strategies, FP&A, analytics, that sort of thing. I have others that are marketing geniuses and healthcare quality gurus and operation logistics types. So we're all complementary. And so we come land, sea, and air when we come to see our clients and help them get their business better. So that's the story of me and Sunstone.
Yeah, no, you've done a whole lot. I think I kind of want to back up to doing some of these turnarounds, because I imagine some of that, some of the principles there probably carry over to some of your consulting and advisory work you do now. So like, you get brought in, and this company's, like you said, chains on the door, or they're getting ready to go, file Chapter 11 or something like that. Like, what's the first thing you look at to try to begin the turnaround process? Because I'm sure it's a long road, but I'm sure there's some things that you can look at, on day one and be like, okay, these are the priorities of things that we need to start, at least looking into.
Yeah, I go right to 30,000 feet. And, somebody asked me, once, what's your superpower, what's your skills? And one of the ones I think is, and again, euphemistically, I think it's the Greek character Cassandra has the gift of sight. She can see into the future. The downside is, part of that gift of sight is that she sees her own death. So kind of a gift. So that's kind of where I am. I've got that gift of sight, I think, and it starts at fundamentals, which is getting under the hood and breaking down the fundamentals of the business. And I mean like real core, which is what's your value proposition, but more importantly, what's your proprietary distinction. How are you bigger, faster, better, cheaper than the marketplace? And then how big is that marketplace in terms of total addressable market? So, and a lot of these companies got in trouble because they didn't check a simple formula. And the formula, A plus B equals C. A, I think I have a great company with great people, and we're executing the hell out of it, and we're doing everything we can do, and we got a great business. B, there's a total addressable market out there with customers that are ready to buy our stuff, love what we do, we have a competitive advantage. C, I have an amazing company in terms of profitable net revenue growth, employee satisfaction, all the KPIs. And invariably what happens is, A plus B doesn't equal C, and that's where you get into the issue. So sometimes, frankly, on the fundamentals is you open up the hood and you say, you got a bad business, right? The reason you failed is because you deserve to fail. Your market is changing. You're not. You're selling buggy whips when when cars are going off the shelves, and some of it is just that fundamental. So if you start with it, you have those things basic in place, right? You do have a product that the market wants, the total addressable market. It's not totally red ocean. You have an opportunity to acquire that. Then you get into the execution side of it. It's okay, where's it falling apart? Is it falling apart on growth strategies? Is it falling apart on execution and margins and quality of product? Is it falling apart, on targeting and outreach? And so from there, you hang your various interventions to address the root cause.
All righty. So after you take the 30,000 foot view and you kind of look at that A plus B equals C piece of things, are there specific areas that you like to dive in and address, particularly when we're talking about like a turnaround situation? Because you've got pieces a lot of times where either the money's not there where it should be, or is it a business development problem? And how do you kind of tease out, is it a front end issue or like a back end efficiency issue?
Well, I guess you start to break down kind of root cause, right? Uh-huh. And so there are 3 or 4 different buckets, places of inquiry, starting with the A and the B and the C, right? And so, again, A, being I have a great company, it's great, I'm executing. B, I have a great opportunity in the marketplace, loves me. C, I have great results. But in there is kind of loaded. So you can start with, well, first of all, strategically, what does the market actually look like? Where are you positioned? Is it, red ocean, blue ocean? Is it a growth market? Is it a developing nascent market? What is the nature? What's the total addressable market? Who are your customers? How many of them out there? What's the competition look like? So you start with a strategic lens. There's an old joke, which I love, is that nothing kills a bad product faster than good marketing.
Yeah.
So if you got the wrong strategy and or have the wrong segment or have not really done the work in addressing on truly what makes you differentiating, why should somebody buy you? You're starting with you've got a foot in the grave, and again, no amount of clever FP&A work or marketing work or sales execution is going to change that. So you start at 30,000 feet and really get into the strategy of, is this, are your financial results, do they reflect the nature of truly what your product is? And maybe you might be diluting yourself in terms of where things stand. So that's number one. Then beyond that, then there's kind of two other lines of inquiry to go on, and the first one is obviously in the revenue stream, the top line.
Yeah.
If you have this purported competitive advantage and you have this opportunity to outperform the market, and there's a viable market, does that show up in your revenue numbers? Does it show up in your market share? If you're the best and brightest, for a segment, if you've done a good segment, do you have a lion's share of the market, or certainly on a path to get there? If not, we'll say, okay, we got to get back into, said, all right, well, what's driving this? Do we have a sales execution issue? Are we positioning the product wrong? Do we have a client retention problem? Do we have a messaging problem? Are we have a distribution problem? Are we figuring out ways to get our product to market? So there's a whole realm of things that go with the kind of the revenue top line side. And then the third bucket obviously gets into the kind of the margins and the operational effectiveness. So if you stipulate that, no, I got a good strategy, the market's right. B, I've got reasonably good sales execution and marketing. There's always opportunity for improvement there, but I've got the tools and we're doing the job, but we're just we're just not making the return. And then you get into the operational efficiency, and some of that ties to the strategy as well, because you have a set of specs, right? Our profile, ideal customer client profile looks like this. This is what they want to buy. Here's the price they want to buy it. And here's how our operation, produces that. And so our sales structure and communication is really just connecting the dots. Here's what you want. Here's what we deliver. Buy, And when you get into that structure inside of an FPA, and you do a lot of analytics, and you find out what are you really making money at and what are you not making money at. Can you, are you manufacturing the product, in a way that not only meets your customers' desires and goals in terms of whatever the performance of the product is, but also in a manner that makes you money and that sort of thing. So those are the three streams I jump into kind of right away, and then troubleshoot to figure out where the problem is. And there's a fourth stream, which kind of gets at culture and execution,
like team retention,
management process that really cut through all three, right? How are you in this mess in the first place, and what about your structure and your culture and your organization and your people got you to the point where you're in this sort of trouble? So those are the things that I think about when we start talking about firefighting and troubleshooting.
Well, and I'd assume that fourth stream, like you said, kind of touches all of it. And I imagine if you have like a culture, maybe like just weak management is not maybe a politically correct way to say it, but you got a manager that's not going to address a problem with some team members or something, and maybe that top end funnel of the revenue side, and then that ends up filtering down into the efficiency side because of that, the lack of addressing the issue in one place kind of crosses over from that A to that B to that C, right?
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of prototype, problems, cultural problems, and then be honest with the one that I found to be the most prevalent and the most insidious is everybody's happy even though they're not successful. Yeah. Right? It's that we're all whistling past the graveyard, and we're all in, it's us against them, and we don't know who them is, and we're all, in it together. But there's a sort of collective groupthink going on, and then, obfuscate, deny, blame others. So when things don't go the way they want or the way you want, the team is all very much into the team, but they're not being realistic or hard, looking at themselves, saying, "Hey, we're losing, right? We're not successful." And so there's a propensity to kind of, go along to get along, and then everybody's gonna be happy, and nary a dissenting view will be heard. And to me, it's like, in sports parlance, if, basketball, you're at halftime, you're down by 30 and you're blaming the refs. It's, and that's in cities. And I've seen that over and over again. And, I find that actually to be a more common problem necessarily than the dysfunctional leadership team that either the gal at the top's a tyrant or Myron Milquetoast and refusing to make decisions. I find that more, we have a great culture. Our employees really like it here, and the leaders all get along, and yippee skippy, and and we've got a foosball table in the lunchroom, and all this stuff. But meanwhile, you're down by 30 at half, right? So you'll wake up. So and that's a really hard thing to break through, because organizations that are failing should feel stress and pressure. Should feel it. You can't just make it go away. There's a reason that the executives are grumpy and employees are unhappy, and and customers aren't happy. It's because you're not doing well. It's supposed to be that way. It's how capitalism works.
Yeah. Well, and I think, there's a lot of pressure on, especially in healthcare, where there's a lot of turnover, and if on the clinical side, burnout is huge. Like, there's this desire to try to make it super smooth, super happy for everybody so that we retain key staff and all that. But at some level, like those, like you said, the feelings of angst should be there if the organization isn't doing well. So how much of, when you come in, like, are you having to do like an all teams meeting or all hand meeting and say, listen, like, the only reason we're here is because things are not going well? Or like, how do you address that? Do you address that from the top and kind of filter it down, or you try to get everybody together? Or
yeah, so I try very much, and that's a great question, because in my 35 plus years, I've been in that situation a number of times, and I don't know that I've always been successell. So it's still a journey for me. It's hard to get through. I mean, I can tell in past lives where I've been on executive teams and that very thing. And I remember one executive team I was on, and we were clearly spinning downward. I mean, we were heading for real trouble, and I knew it. I could see it. It was clear to me, a couple of my colleagues, but the rest of the place was just, you don't know. This is just part of the business. And so I actually did a 60 line, like, who am I? And I listed all these things, and it ended in bankruptcy. And it was a case study of another company that was virtually in the same space that had the same characteristics. So I presented this to my fellow executives and the chairman, and they were like, "Is this us?" I go, "It looks like us, doesn't it? And this is where it's going. Do you think we could get them to change anything?" No. So it's hard, because I don't know that everybody makes the jump. So the first thing is, you don't run in with your hair on fire, right? So if you're going to get somebody to convince that something's wrong, it's very much a Socratic method, which is, and so I do this all the time, and it's kind of a cultural mapping where I sit down and we put the pencils down, and we sit there and we get up on the whiteboard and said, okay, everybody tell me what a great company looks like. Give me the adjectives. And everybody writes them all down, and they're dynamic and love their employees and customers. You write them all down, and you're putting the things all over the wall, and you paste them all over the place. And okay, let's go back and kind of organize them. For the most part, people coalesce them. And occasionally you'll get some cognitive dissonance, but you put them together in groups, and then you kind of get, 25, 30 different descriptors. And then you say, all right, let's go back now, and we got this one group that talks about, always delights its customers. Customers love them. They're all references. So no easy grades here. We're going to grade ourselves really hard. All the time, most of the time, some of the time, hardly ever, never. And then you go through that. Now, if you have an organization still in denial, they'll still trend to the fantasy side.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you can do that. You go around the table, and then you go back one more time and said, okay, now this is how we look at it. How would pick how do our investors, how do our customers, or if we're in a department, how's the rest of the organization see this? And that's where you see the cognitive dissonance come in. And that's where you find out that you have a cultural rot. So this has happened a bunch of times where I go through the whole thing and I get it all, and everybody we're congratulatory, and then we get to external audiences think we're idiots, right? Effectively, and they're aware enough to know that our customers leave, they don't like us, and then you try to reconcile that and see if that gets a call to action. And I remember was in one place where I was doing this as the new chief marketing officer, and I had the whole sales and marketing team in there, and then I went through the whole thing, and I kind of looked back at them, and they go, "Well, that's where you're here to fix that." Right? There was no sense of ownership, and then I knew I had a cultural rot that I had to kind of root out. So it's a very difficult thing, so I try to be very Socratic, and and especially if you're the hired gun, come in to kind of change the culture, really hard, right? So you don't. There's a natural kind of okay, here's this gas bag going to tell us what to do, and just gonna and so you go in very Socratic, very gentle, and you just try to let the process. Okay, what are our goals and objectives? Get them all written down, and then you look at the gaps, right? Now, you can't help everybody because somebody's going to look at the gaps and go, they can
rationalize it away.
Right. And then that's where the CEO has to step in and say, I've got the wrong person. And I'll tell you a quick little epitaph here, which is also instructive, hopefully. Sure. So executive team sitting around, we're at that cognitive dissonance where, we have a goal in mind where we want to be $1 billion business, market cap, revenue in the next, 5 years. And that means a 15% compounded growth. And the company's never done even close to 5. So, but the executives, so there's new group, old group, half and half, 8 of us sitting around the table, chairman, CEO, COO, all that stuff. So, and we have a facilitator, and there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of finger pointing, and there's the old crew. The business had almost gone bankrupt a couple of years before, and so it crawled back from the edge and was on its way back. And then, so there was all this finger pointing and anxiety, and I said, okay, I'm the new guy. I said, it seems to me we all agree on the goal, right? Yep, we're going to be $1 billion business in 5 years, right? So that quick math, that's 15% compounded growth, right? We've never done more than 5. Yep. So how much change, scale of 1 to 10, do we need to get there? 1, we sleep in our chairs, fall asleep in a drool puddle. We're going to get there. 10, we have to blow it up and start over. Well, it was the 8s and the 2s. So as the old guard says, 2 to 3, the new guard said 13 this year, and we can settle at 8 after, right? But then I said, no, and the 2 said, no, we got 12% in the bag, and so we started at 2, and I just said we can ramp up over time. But literally, what happened in 60 days, we went from tootling along at 4 to 5%, and then found ourselves at -1 to 2, and couldn't answer why. And the 2s became -4s, so they just get even harder. So not everybody's going to make the change and journey. Some people are happy just with that, just kind of resetting the pars and bragging about burying them as opposed to doing the real thing. And then that's where you've got to make. They're in the wrong role. There's not a place for them, and I'm making a value judgment, but they're not going to get you from the next point. And sometimes that's the executive team, sometimes it's the next run below. But that's where the hard decisions have to be made.
Yeah. Okay, so you're at that point you are talking about like changing out people on the team to make sure you're hitting the goals that you need to hit. So.
Yeah, I mean, are they up to it? I mean, and sometimes too in organizations, and I'm sure you've seen this as well, is that as organizations evolve, the people that started with you on the journey and the early days of, last one in line at the bank on Friday doesn't get paid, so, it's like those hard days and everybody's worried about making payroll. And the glory that the camaraderie that those folks feel. But then as you get to the next level, it requires a different skill set. And that's where you kind of get the tear-stained conversations where somebody was, doing that stuff early on, but is not going to be able to get it to the next level. And, there's a sadness to it, but I don't know. I try to think of it a little bit more clinically, and that is these people have unique skill sets, and they should apply them where they're going to be successful and happy. And they should go on to their next thing and be happy and fulfilled. People will know generally will know if they're not succeeding. And so keeping them there and in a role where they're not succeeding, not only does a disservice to them and to you, it also does a disservice to the rest of the organization who watches it and sees it and is saying, how are we going to move forward, with old Pete? Old Pete's a great guy, but old Pete's not up to the next level here. He needs to go do something else.
Yeah. Well, and that even in and of itself would denote to the team like weak management, right? Like if you're not able or willing to put the right person in the spot of leadership to now take us to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, business is a team sport. You're relying on your colleagues, right? And especially from the CEO's perspective. Yeah, I mean, you're relying on your colleagues. Whether you're the growth person in the marketing role, or the ops person, or finance, you have critical roles to play to support the team. And if you're not up for it, it drags everybody down, and the organization suffers. And that's hard stuff. I'm not unsympathetic to managers having to go through that. It's really, especially if they've grown with those folks in the play, or just brought them in and realized, I have to admit I made a hiring mistake. That's really hard stuff.
Yeah. Well, so shifting gears then from, okay, we've found ourselves in a turnaround situation. Let's try to avoid all that from the beginning. So if, let's say you wanted to start a new business or get a venture up off the ground and grow it to, say, millions or billions in revenue in the healthcare space, kind of what are the steps that you take to kind of, one, avoid some of those pitfalls, but then set yourself up for success in that regard?
So I will come down to this. One is the roadmap and careful strategic planning, and having the discipline of putting pencil to paper and actually memorializing what you're thinking. It's a history major, so it's the running joke is, the battle plan is, here's a rifle, keep going to hit some Russians. No. We need we need a plan, right? We need to understand the environment. We need to understand the total addressable market. We make assumptions about it. We got to memorialize it. Have the discipline of putting it in writing, so that those assumptions and hypotheses can be tested as our business unfolds. And so it's really, what is the what is the problem we're seeking to solve? So again, you start with a business definition, and a lot of companies make the mistake of making business definitions based on product. No. That's what you sell, right? But really, what is your business? What is your why? Why do you do what you do? What problems do you seek to solve? Who are the ones that you're seeking to solve it for? And then start to throw some metrics around what that total addressable market looks like. So again, you don't describe features, you describe benefits. My product helps somebody go from this to that, or generates this sort of an outcome. Yeah. And then what's the proprietary distinction? Okay, so what, right? What is it about what you do that makes you bigger, faster, better, cheaper than the competition? Again, memorialize it, write it down. These are the things that, and then you build, obviously, the classic, and again, it gets dismissed, but it's a wonderful tool, the old SWOT, it works, right?
Yeah.
And if, as long as you're really hard on yourself and not grading, gut grading, do the SWOT and then build your strategic plan about how to exploit your strengths, address your weaknesses, explore your opportunities, and manage your threats. And then make that a refreshed document. So that becomes now kind of your map and your road map. So you have a plan, and then you're testing it all the time, right? And then the other side of it is a management process around metrics, is building the cockpit, the avionics that take you on your path. And that's not 1,000 one-inch dials, right? You can get over, nor is it flying with no instruments. I remember having a conversation, and by the way, that's the piece that drives me mental, because a lot of organizations have very bad metrics.
Yeah.
Very bad metrics. And they're not connected, they're connected to things that they think are important, but don't really reflect or really understand what's driving their business. So I had a conversation with a exec chairman. And of course it was an organization I was part of, and we started to fail. The revenue started to fall off. We couldn't answer why. We couldn't answer price, mix, volume. I mean, it's 101 stuff. If you're running a grocery store, you can answer price, mix, volume. We're selling less profitable peaches than plums. You know why? right? And this is a healthcare business, and healthcare services business. We could not answer why our revenue went from 5% growth to minus 2 or 3 because we couldn't answer price mix volume. Of course, then when you get in trouble, the first thing everybody wants to do is cut expenses. So I got to cut expenses, and so we went to the budget and said, get rid of this data warehouse project. What a waste of time. And I looked at the exec chairman, and I said, well, why are you getting rid of that? We just said we can't answer why our revenue's dropping. I mean, isn't that kind of a fundamental? He goes, look, Walmart knows more about its customers than anything. It's got the greatest data in the world, and they miss their numbers. So what chance do we have? I said, oh. I said, well, you're a pilot, right? And you happen to be a pilot. Yeah. I said, got all them fancy avionics in the plane there? Yeah, well, let's just take them all out because planes crash. So why bother by having no instruments at all because planes crash with fancy avionics? That's what you're doing. So so the second piece of this, in addition to having that path and that organized structure that you're constantly testing and moving against and being inquisitive against, is also having the metrics, the balanced scorecard, the KPIs, and again, various levels. Don't create, and I've seen sales organizations get crushed with silly CRM requirements and absurd sales stuff. So really focus on important pyramid of information from the guys and gals at the top all the way down, but differences between diagnostics and KPIs so that you can troubleshoot. And then don't make some of the mistakes that get made, which is put your hands over it and pretend it doesn't exist. Or, it's a one-time event, it'll never happen again. So if you have those two things, that kind of roadmap, clear view with giant question marks at the end of all your sentences, but memorialize that you're keeping a living, breathing document. You have a management process and structure in place that is built on dials and gauges that tell you how you're doing. And then the last thing is if you have a culture and environment that is constantly built on testing and probing and pushing yourselves and challenging the status quo. Those are the three elements for, I think, a magical organization and a journey that's going to take you from where you started. Because the irony is, and you've seen this too, is like entrepreneurs will start with an idea and they'll end up 180 degrees in the opposite direction and wildly successful because they had that kind of process and they saw an opportunity where they just morphed a little bit. And, the path they were on, they thought they had a good idea and got into it. But over here, bing, and all of a sudden, boom, home run, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So I guess when you're setting up those metrics, how would maybe a potential CEO or a founder even begin to think and put the pieces around okay, what is important to measure? Because obviously what gets measured gets managed, or what gets measured gets improved. Mm-hmm. So obviously picking those things, and you even said that if you're measuring the wrong things or you don't have the data to make the right decision, I guess how do you guide people on choosing what are the KPIs that I should even be worried about in this area?
Yeah, so obviously you start at a very basal level, which is you're going to have revenue, you're going to have expenses, SG&A, and then you're going to have kind of profitability. So the three big dials. And so the CEO, again, depending on the nature of the organization and how flat it is and all, the CEO and CFO are going to be kind of heavily focused on those things. And so what starts the cascade is that, okay, if my revenue is off, what is it that I want to know? Okay, now I got a dial that says my revenue should be at 10 and it's at 9. Why is it 9? Right? And so that's when the next level down, and depending on again how close the CEO and how big the company is having those KPIs, those diagnostic or KPIs that support what's going on, so that I can answer the question on, is this, we wanted 10, now it's 9, is this the new reality? Or is this a one-time blip that will come back? Or do I need a rethink or a redo, or what kind of troubleshooting do I need to get from 9 to 10? And that sets off the KPIs that are below, and that's what you'll get into on the revenue side: price, mix, volume. Maybe it's by segment, maybe it's and again, it's got to be actionable enough so that's not just a big lump. Like when you just say my revenue was supposed to be 10 and it's 9, I don't know what to do with that. Yeah. I don't know what that means. But now if I know that I'm pushing the right number of units, but I'm pushing more of the lower cost, lower premium, or lower revenue units than the other one. Okay, now I've got that. Or, gee, I'm getting on this activity side, I have the volume, I'm getting the looks, but I'm not closing. Do I have a sales execution problem? Do I have a branding problem? So you have the next level of KPIs that inform and support the big dial. And then there's another layer down below that, where you get into really kind of the diagnostic metrics, right? And sometimes those could be heuristics, but there's that pyramid of information so that you can answer the next question, right? Oh, okay, why is my close ratio off? Well, I need to strip it down some more. And, well, I got 5 salespeople, and 3 of them are killing it and 2 of them aren't. Okay, well, now I need to go another layer down. Why are those 2 not killing it? And it's all around troubleshooting and execution. Yeah. And you say, okay, now I have a theory on why I'm at 9 and not 10, and it's actionable. And these are the things I'm going to do, and I'm going to measure that, and I'm going to report that up. And so this month is at 9, next month will be 9.5, then it'll be 9.7, then it'll be 10, or something, and you could see the plan. Or not only is it, it's at 9 or it's more structural than that. Oh, gee, we have to revisit it. So there's an example, right? It's kind of those layers to be able to answer why and so what, now what do I do about it?
No, I think that's very helpful because I think a lot of times it's easy, like management just wants give me the 3 things that I can track to make sure the business is on the right track. But like you said, the ability to drill down to those subsequent questions. Okay, well, why isn't this number where I want to? Okay, boom, and then answering that next question and the next question, the next question. So you almost it's necessary to be tracking all that information, but you display it to the right stakeholders or team members in a way that is actionable for them because
absolutely the layer, so an example we did there, we just made that up, right? So we were at 10, we're at 9, we wanted to be at 10, we pulled down, let's assume that the volume's all there, but their close ratios, which was built into our activity, is good. We got plenty of looks, so the market's there. We're losing, and then you get in and say, well, invariably there's always a pyramid, so you always have some people outperform the others in the sales organization, but why are these 2 so far off? Again, is that something the CEO is supposed to be involved in? Well, a small company would be, but in a normal, company with 50 or more employees, probably not. But then that CMO or the chief revenue officer is going to know, either, oh, I see what the issue is. They're not doing this or they're not doing that. And I can coach and train, or no, I got to put them on performance and I got to get them out. But so the idea is, the CEO says, well, how am I going to get from 9 to 10? And that's what I want. The number's 10, that's what we're going to, or how do you get there? And the CMO says, we have identified the problem. It's going to take us 3 months to get back on track. Here's what we're going to do. And then you measure it. Plan, do, check, act, right? Yeah. Plan what you're going to do it, check it, and act on it. And that's management 101 fundamentals. Yeah. But a lot of people don't do it. It's wild. Blows my mind, but they don't do it.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So we're getting here near the bottom. So, Mike, thanks so much for taking the time. I always ask people if there's 1 or 2 main points you'd want a listener to walk away with from the episode, what would they be?
Yeah. So I would go back to just ask yourself the hard question. I think I've got a great business and I'm doing wonderful and my people are great. And, it doesn't have to be platitudes. B, the market that I sell into is ready for me, wants me. C, I have a great business. And if those things aren't lining up, and that your spidey sense ought to tell you that there's trouble in paradise. And it doesn't have to be the end of the world. You need to, if you put yourself on the right journey, all the things that I described, the tools and things like that, you may get in a different spot. You may end up in a different, part of the world that you thought you were going to be in, but you will be successful, and you'll be more in control of your environment than just kind of wish and hoping. So, yeah, I go to. It's trite, it's silly, the old Ayn Rand. Check your premise, and your spidey sense will tell you whether you got it. And again, there's a series of things then you can do your checker boxes on and ask if those disciplines are in place, and you'll figure it out.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, where can people go to learn more about you, connect with you, check out your work, and maybe even have you and your team come in and help them out?
Sure. And our mission is really, and it's built certainly on my career and all of my colleagues, we love the journey of building and fixing things. So we do spend a fair amount of time really in a non-commercial environment, just listening to people, and it keeps us connected and talking to entrepreneurs. And so, all the people that that are out building companies, I mean, God bless them. I mean, really, this is what's the world revolves around. So we have this great affection and love for them, and we'll do anything in our power to help them out. So so folks should not hesitate at all to get in touch with me. It's Sunstone Management Advisors.com, all one word, /BOS, Better Outcomes. So they can come to me. They can book time with me if they just want some informal brain pickage, get on each other's radar screen. I'm happy to do that all day long. And we have a cadre of 9 or 10 other operating partners that all have different skill sets and are happy to participate as well. So we just love talking to folks that are out there on the journey. We have, our mission is to help them go beyond, as we say.
Awesome, cool deal. Well, we'll link all that to the show notes. So Mike,
awesome.
Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.